Morning. Jina langu GG. Ujumbe wangu kwa waziri mkuu wa Israel Benjamin Netanyahu. Ujumbe wangu ni kuhusu mpaka. Nakumbuka mwaka 2018 nilitoa unabii kwamba nimeona mgongano wa mpaka kwa nchi ya Israel na nchi zingine. Hichi ndio ninachokiona nchi nyingine. Hiki ndicho kinachoendelea chini. Naombea busara za Mungu, ufanye maamuzi sahihi kwa sababu itahasiri sana jambo likitokea. Endelea kuombea nchi ya Israel na nchi zingine katika jina la Yesu. Amen.
To our top story this morning, the winds of normalization swept across the White House as the UAE and Bahrain officially signed a peace deal with Israel. At the lavish White House ceremony hosted by the US President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump, the foreign ministers of Bahrain and the UAE signed the Abraham Accord with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The accord has been printed in 3 languages, that is Hebrew, Arabic and English.
The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of the State of Israel.
This is peace in the Middle East without blood all over the sand. I say it. Right now, it's been blood all over the sand for decades and decades and decades. That's all they do is they fight and kill people, and nobody gets anything.
After almost 25 years, the 45th President of the United States has recreated history at the South Lawn of the White House. Sitting beside the leaders of Israel, Bahrain and the UAE, Trump has broken a long-standing taboo when they signed these agreements, normalizing relations with Israel in a strategic realignment of Middle Eastern countries against Iran. The back-to-back agreements, which have drawn bitter condemnation from the Palestinians, marks an improbable diplomatic victory for Trump. However, Trump has promised to protect the Palestinian cause and at the same time satisfy Israel's demands.
Yeah, I think they come along, and they're already, obviously we speak to them. They've come a long way. We used to pay them $750 million a year when I got here, and I said to people that negotiated with them before, why did you pay when they treat the United States with such disrespect? They speak so badly. Death to America, death to Israel. I said, we give them $750 million a year. I said, why didn't somebody cut off those payments? Well, we didn't think it would be appropriate. I said, well, I do. And I cut off the payments to them, as you know. But other countries give them money. You deal with very rich countries. And these countries are now all signing with us. They'll all be signed with us, all of them. I spoke with the King of Saudi Arabia. We had a great conversation. And I think positive things will happen there, too. He's a great gentleman. And the Crown Prince, we spoke with the Crown Prince. So we've made tremendous strides. And this is peace in the Middle East without blood all over the sand. I say it. Right now, it's been blood all over the sand for decades and decades and decades. That's all they do is they fight and kill people, and nobody gets anything. And this is strong peace, really strong peace. And it's a different way. We went in the back door, but I call it going in the very smart door. We went in the smart door, and we're getting people, and the Palestinians will absolutely be a member. I don't say that with any bravado. I just tell you the Palestinians will be a member at the right time. At the right time.
The Israeli Prime Minister has called the peace accord a pivot in the history, which will herald a new dawn of peace. Listen in.
And the blessings of the peace we make today will be enormous. First, because this peace will eventually expand to include other Arab states, and ultimately it can end the Arab-Israeli conflict once and for all.
Now, for more insights into this historic peace deal, Jagriti Dave is joining us live from Washington, D.C. Jagriti, thanks for joining us. Now, tell us a little bit about the global significance of this historic peace deal and, of course, how all parties will benefit from it.
Well, many people are describing this as a really significant moment for the Trump administration in terms of foreign policy. And Bahrain and the UAE are only the third and fourth countries to normalise relations with Israel after Egypt and Jordan. So in that sense, it really is a very significant moment. The deal itself, the accord itself, signed at the White House. The president there, the clips that you played suggested that other Arab nations will follow, though he didn't say which. And really, the significance, some commentators are saying that, what will be really significant is looking at what Saudi Arabia does, and if it, as a major player in the region, decides to follow in UAE and Bahrain's footsteps. They haven't intimated that they are going to do so, but some suggest that, Bahrain's involvement was sort of done with the blessing of Saudi Arabia. So it'll be interesting to see really how it reshapes the region.
Right. Now, US President Donald Trump is believed to have brokered this deal and is perceived to be a huge win for him in the run-up to the US elections, of course. So what are your thoughts on that?
So those who are supportive of the president, as I say this is a huge deal, a momentous occasion. The three parties involved have described it as historic. And it will be supported by many of those within the United States who are supportive of positive actions towards Israel. So that would be evangelicals, evangelical Christians in particular. It's expected to boost the president's support in that quarter. However, there are critics of this accord. Some who say that really what this is, it's a pact between countries who have a mutual rivalry with Iran. It's not really a peace deal that is addressing the central issue, which is the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Many view that that is a significant problem, and indeed Palestinians say that really the crucial issue is Israel stepping away from the West Bank and the annexation of the West Bank as a pathway to peace, and that isn't certain that that's going to happen.
Right. Now, you mentioned Palestine, and the Palestinians have, of course, denounced this peace deal, and reports suggest that rockets have been fired into Gaza. And this is, of course, a fallout of the peace deal, while Donald Trump says that he will, of course, protect the Palestinian cause as well, at the same time satisfy Israel's demands. So can we expect more of these attacks as a backlash to this Abraham Accord?
I mean, this is a deal. This is something that President Trump is trying to really put forward at a time, 2 months before the election, pitching himself as, the master deal maker, the master diplomat now, the peacemaker. And, you hear lots of Republicans coming out talking about how this is going to be the president's legacy. But of course, as you say, critics of this accord and those who, Palestinians and those who are supportive of the Palestinian cause will say that this does nothing for, this does nothing for Palestinians, and that all the maneuvers that the president has been making, in their view, is purely for Israel. And so, given the tensions in the region are, continue to be on tricky terrain, it is difficult to see how, a real momentous peace can be achieved if that central issue of clashes and tensions between the conflict between Israel and Palestine isn't really addressed. So it remains to be seen how the region shifts as a result of these accords, whether there's pressure on Palestinians to change, on the Palestinian leadership to change their approach, or whether they will continue to put pressure on Arab nations, as they have done so far, to say that, well, until there is a resolution of issues such as the West Bank, to try to isolate Israel. But given that now you've got these two countries that have signed this accord, perhaps the power dynamics do change somewhat. So it'll be it remains to be seen exactly what happens next.
Right. Jagrati, thank you so much for all your inputs on this story, and thank you for joining us.